So, on today's podcast, we're talking about our repeated beingness as leaders and the cultures we hope to create with others. How we show up to do what we do makes an incredible impact on everyone and everything around us. Welcome back to the Thermostat with Jason Barger. If you're currently on a commute, a walk, or just a micro break in your day, glad you're making time to step back, to think, and to reflect on the next steps on your journey. I've never been more convinced the best leaders and team cultures in the world are the ones that make time to step back, breathe in good oxygen, and calibrate their thermostat. I hope today's conversation leaves you feeling grounded and inspired. Now let's dive into today's topic to engage our minds and hearts in order to authentically lead and create compelling cultures wherever we are in the world. Hey everyone, it's Jason, and welcome back to the Thermostat Podcast. Wherever you are and however you're coming to the podcast today, welcome in. So glad you are here. We are in Season 9, which means we've got about 265 episodes or something like that. And so many great micropods around topics, around leadership, culture, mindset, how you're kind of reframing your days and your goals and the vision for life and work ahead. And so if you haven't, checked out old episodes, my invitation to you is just Google my name, Jason Barger, and, whatever topic you're looking for. And chances are you're going to find a great podcast around a topic that's interesting to you. And also you're going to find a lot of great conversations, interviews, chats that I've had with thought leaders and friends from around the world around so many great things. So glad you've made it here. So glad that you are, this has been recommended to you. And I hope you enjoy being a part of this community and listening to this podcast. For those of you that have been part of us from the very beginning, so glad this continues to add value to your life and work. And I still invite you to go back and check out old episodes because they are as relevant today as they were then. And again, Google my name and whatever topic you're looking for, and chances are you'll find something. My commitment to all the listeners at all times when I record these is that I want to make sure that this is a time for you to step back, for the listener to step back from whatever you're working on, and whatever you're experiencing in your life and your work right now, and to think about some time to breathe, some time to think about some of these topics, and then hopefully to have some good oxygen breathed into you so that you can think about that temperature that you're hoping to set in your life and your work. And that's what I will continue to try to do with and for you along the way. If you'll do me the quick favor before we dive into today's topic, if you'll do these things that I keep being told to say, but because they're really important, and that is rate the podcast. If you'll rate the podcast 5 stars on whatever platform you're listening to, if you'll review the podcast in your own words, why is this relevant? Why is it important in the world today? A very noisy, negative world. Why might messages like this be helpful in your own words on whatever platform you're using? And obviously, every time you share the podcast, so episodes that resonate with you, with colleagues, friends, hey, let's listen to this and then talk about it. Maybe sharing it on social media, whatever authentic for you. Every time you do that, that helps amplify and spread these messages, and that is really important. And that's obviously the point. Help share this with as many people as we possibly can. And obviously, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do that on whatever platform you're listening to. So thank you for everybody that takes the moment to do that. As I reflect on the characteristics of the people that I admire most and the leaders who I observe to be most effective. Sometimes personally, I observe them up close in teams and organizations that I support and work with. Sometimes from afar, I might observe this, but of people that I think are the most effective, I see many attributes that rise to the surface. And I ask teams and organizations that I work with and support in their development of leaders and culture, I often ask them, what are the characteristics of the most compelling leaders to them? And it's always interesting to hear what people say. You hear attributes about someone who puts the mission ahead of themselves. You hear and observe people who have vision, who listen, who care for their people, who seek creative solutions rather than blame, and have a drive to make a positive impact on people and in the world. And so it's always fun for me to listen to people name other people that they admire and talk about the characteristics of leadership that have made them compelling to others and people that others are drawn to. and to get clear on what is the type of kind of servant leadership that we're really talking about, and you hear people describe. But one of the characteristics that undoubtedly comes up in every conversation that I have about leadership, but also about great cultures, but it's not always the lead attribute, but it always finds its way into the dialogue. And we always tend to find a conversation that begins to emerge as people then eventually get to this attribute or this characteristic, and it's around consistency. I watch people light up as they talk about humans in their life or leaders in teams they observe or teams they've experienced. I watch them light up about organizations that they admire, and that they seem to show up no matter what is happening around them with a level of consistency that seems to be very inspiring to many people. And it resonates with me because I have my own examples as well. But it's fun to watch people light up as they talk about these humans, these leaders, these teams, these organizations that seem to show up no matter what is happening around them with a level of consistency that's inspiring to the people around them. And they often describe these people as genuine, authentic. Their words and actions are in alignment, is what you often hear people say. So today I want to build upon this idea of consistency as a leader and the power of this kind of congruency that you've heard me talk about on past podcasts, congruency in our life and our work. I want to talk about, dive into this idea of consistency and the power of this kind of congruency in our life and our work. So on today's podcast, we're talking about our repeated beingness as leaders and the cultures we hope to create with others. How we show up to do what we do makes an incredible impact on everyone and everything around us. But before we dive into today's topic, let's pause, take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Many teams and organizations right now are realizing that they need to do both. They need to engage the minds and hearts of their people in person, where everyone in the room can experience the energy of congregating together and find clarity for the road ahead. And they also need to continue to find ways to engage the minds and hearts of their people virtually, with those who are working remotely or at a distance. So, if you are in the process of planning your next team meeting, company all-hands event, conference, or culture summit, and are looking for support with a powerful keynote speech, facilitated team conversations that are the currency for change, or deeper development on leadership mindset and an intentional strategy for the culture you're trying to create, I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. I hope you'll contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. It is my privilege and our honor to partner with great people to provide support in these areas. We want to breathe oxygen into your leaders and throughout your organization so you can set the temperature you want for your culture. We look forward to connecting with you soon. If you didn't hear my recent podcast chat with my friend James Clear, #1 global best-selling author of the book Atomic Habits, I hope you'll go back and give it a listen. It was a really great conversation, just a joy for me to be a part of, and always fun to be with James and listen to his mind. James has a terrific mind and intellect, and it's fun to talk about all his research on habits. And I geek out about it because I love the way that it intersects with the work that I do around developing people and cultures and the role that habits plays in the way we show up as leaders and cultures. And so it's a super valuable conversation and experience for me, but also certainly for anybody that was listening. And I think James really appreciated the connections and the ties that we made to leadership and culture as well. So I was super glad to share James and his work with my audience at the event that I host, Thermostat Cultures Live. It's become an annual event that I host every fall in my hometown of Columbus, Ohio, an intimate gathering of leaders from across industries, and then also a remote online audience participating remotely. So anyway, if you're interested in this event in the future, just visit thermostatcultureslive.com. Stay tuned for that as more information is shared over the coming months about the event coming out in the fall. But as James and I were talking, we stumbled into this idea about the idea of what we called repeated beingness. Repeated beingness. And so I want to dive a little deeper on the pod today about this idea. When I participate in this exercise of imagining the people in my life, in my work, or people I admire from afar, all of those same attributes come to the surface. The attributes of somebody who listens, who's caring for their people, creative solutions. They put others ahead of themselves in terms of their mission and their purpose. All of those things come to life. But really, this idea of repeated beingness comes to the surface too, as I imagine these people again in my life and work, but also people that I've admired and observed from afar. And what James and I went into talking about is it seemed to be for him as well. And really, what we were identifying is this seems to resonate with people across teams and organizations. This idea of repeated beingness is a fancy way of describing someone who over time has shown up with a level of consistency that mirrors that person they aim to be. They are someone who has clarity on their authentic self and the type of person, leader, and culture they hope to create with those around them. And then their intentionality each day brings about this kind of repeated beingness. When you're around them, you just see that they continue to show up and repeat this being, who they are, just is a natural repeated beingness. Who they are radiates to everyone around them. No matter what is happening around them, you come to know that their repeated beingness will be present. There's a consistency to how they approach things, how they show up for other people, who they are. I love this reframing on the term consistency because it really brings, it seems like a fancier term, but this idea of people showing up with such consistency and repeating just who they really are at their core, and that's what they do each day, and it brings people this level of consistency. I think back when I celebrated my mom's life as her life was coming to an end. I remember the word showing up most often in my mind about her as I would describe her to other people and celebrate her life was this idea of consistency. She was such a principled and values-driven person. She had this ability to show up with such consistency to those around her, and therefore people could trust her and were drawn to her. And really what they were drawn to in my mind was this kind of repeated beingness that you could come to expect that when you were with my mom, you knew the being that you were going to be with because it was consistent. And she repeated this beingness every moment of her life. Now, she wasn't perfect, but you had this sense and this feeling of consistency when you were with her. And it was fun to, certainly towards the end of her life, to hear other people identifying how she shared that with them. I think about sports leaders or business leaders or teams that accomplish great things. And I think about those people over time that we often celebrate, and it often is their repeated beingness that people are drawn to. And what helps them be successful when others seem to ride the roller coaster of day-to-day emotions or day-to-day things that are out of their control. My observations of the best in the world and my experience also with working with so many different teams and organizations over the last 20 years is that the clarity on the temperature that people aim to set as leaders and as the culture of their teams is the first step to practice this type of repeated beingness. Is we have to be able to identify, well, what is that temperature that we aim to set? What's that temperature that I aim to set as an individual in my own life, but certainly as a leader? And what is that temperature for how we do what we do that we want to set as the culture of our team and our organization? And when, the first step of being able to identify those things and assess kind of where we are with this temperature that we aim for, but then the practice of that is this type of repeated beingness. They know what they are aiming for and then have the discipline to practice the intentionality to bring congruence to their words and actions each day. And along the way, they become and they create this kind of repeated beingness for themselves, but also for everybody around them. And my hope for myself is that I hope I have a level of repeated beingness for the people in my life. I hope I have a level of repeated beingness with the teams and organizations that I support. And the hope is that as we get clearer on the type of cultures we're trying to create in our families and our friends, and certainly in every team and organization on the planet, as we get more and more clear on what we want that to be, the practice of bringing that into life and into congruence with our words and actions is what will help us create this kind of repeated beingness for ourselves, for others, and for the culture that we are creating with the people around us. And so I challenge myself and I challenge you to be thinking about what is that repeated beingness that you want people to feel around you in your life and your work. And then the courage and the discipline for all of us to say, what would it mean to live that and practice that each day? So as always, I'll leave you with some questions to ponder. How would you describe the person or leader that you hope to be in the world? What would it look like to practice this repeated beingness? And how could you help support the repeated beingness within your team or within your culture? So good luck with this vision that you might have for your life ahead, for your work, for the team, the culture, the people that you're trying to kind of create this repeated beingness with. And if, as always, if we can be helpful to you and support you along the way, whether that's helping to engage the minds and hearts of your people or align them around what is that culture, or helping with the strategic and intentional development of people and the culture that you're trying to create into the future, I hope you'll track us down at jasonvbarger.com. You can email us info@jasonvbarger.com, or you can certainly track us down on social media at jasonvbarger. So I hope today's episode got you thinking in some ways. I hope it got you kind of breathing in some good oxygen and thinking about that temperature that you're hoping to set in your life and your work. Calibrating our own personal thermostat and that with the team and the organization around us is not a drive-through experience. It's something that we have to return to and continue to think about. And over time, the consistency of our thinking and alignment with our actions and behaviors, that's what leads to that kind of repeated beingness where we set a consistent temperature for the people around us. So I hope you'll keep tuning in. I hope, again, you'll go back and listen to the 265 episodes. Again, you can Google Jason Barger and whatever topic you're looking for, and chances are there'll be something come up. Thanks to everybody that subscribes, that rates the podcast 5 stars, that leaves an authentic review in their own words, and certainly that shares it with the people around them. That's the way these messages spread. So thanks to everybody that does that. Cheers to you on the road ahead, and remember that the best leaders, teams, and organizations, they calibrate their thermostat. They go through the process of doing that, and it's intentional, it's strategic, it's something they practice together, and it's an honor to do this kind of work in the world. So step back, remember, be a thermostat, and breathe good oxygen. Thank you for listening to today's podcast, and I hope the messages and questions stimulate positive change along your path. As always, if these messages resonate with you and add value to your life, I hope you'll help amplify them throughout the world. Please rate, comment, and share on whatever podcast or social media platform you're using, and share this podcast with the people in your life or work who should be part of these conversations. That way, this spirit does, in fact, spread. If these messages or developing leaders and culture would be helpful to you and your organization, please contact us at jasonvbarger.com, jasonvbarger.com. And remember, we are all ambassadors for the culture we want to create in our life and work. We have to own the vision we want to be a part of. The future of leadership is you, is me, is us. Be a thermostat.